Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having not just me, but our team here today to introduce not to just our call for action, but hopefully to engender a sense of trust in terms of who we are and what we're looking to do today with everyone here as a community, which is the only way that we see that we can solve a lot of the challenges in front of us today. And that's no more than important with climate change or many of the other important initiatives that Temasek Trust is leading. First, I'd like to discuss briefly who are we and what are we doing. Clime Capital is a Singapore-based venture fund management company. We're homegrown here. We have team members on the ground in Singapore and in Southeast Asia in the countries we serve. What about CSEF and this unique fund that we manage? What are we doing? We believe we're the first and only catalytic fund that's based here in Singapore that's helping to move along the low carbon transition. And we've been doing this since the onset of COVID with the backing of very strong global philanthropy. And this is what makes us unique, to come on board when the private sector is unable and unwilling to do so. So I just wanted to share with you perhaps why you should trust working with us. Help come alongside of us as our partners as we look to embark on initiatives for the low carbon transition. You will be alongside global leaders for the low carbon transition from philanthropy, as well as other like-minded corporates and funds that know that we desperately need to make impact. So how do we make impact? Well, since we launched CSEF in June 2020, in the midst of a COVID lockdown, when our LPs stood behind us, we have been successful throughout these periods of time, mobilizing global funds from our LPs at this point into 6 investments in the region. Some of those were right away, other of those have been later in our journey. So what have we done? How have we mobilized this very crucial catalytic capital that is so important for the low carbon transition? Well, we're really happy to tell you here today that for every dollar that we've put forward into very early stage, high risk businesses that are on the ground in Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, we have already brought in $20 of additional funding. I'd like to go through with you a few other numbers. What does that mean for climate change? If only these projects are successful, this represents almost 100 million tons of CO2 equivalent, which we think is massive. As these projects go on, they will also move ahead and bring in more capital. How much? As we mobilize banks, venture funds, others and organizations that you all work with, we're going to be calling on $4 billion of additional capital. The great thing is, we've heard about the challenges for climate change is that we think when projects are de-risked, we'll get that capital. So philanthropy has the biggest challenge. You have to come forward now, and it's urgent. And this is the way that we can multiply this capital to make a long-lasting difference. So as we are announcing our regional energy management initiative, we can move this along now. This is low-hanging fruit for philanthropy to advance. Come along with us. We're putting together our funds along with others that we're organizing of around $2.6 million and growing and more to just this initiative alone. This we would like to open up the relationship, the building with you here in the room today, to also come along. We're seeking another $2 million. We think that this is a great opportunity where we're going to mobilize across Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines for projects where we can build capacity, get them up and running soon, bring on board more private sector capital, and actually unlock the significant sums of funds that are needed so we can address this global problem. Thank you very much.
Yang terhormat Bapak Budi Sadikin, Menteri Kesihatan Republik Indonesia, Speaker of Parliament Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, Chairman Mr. Lim Boon Heng, and Chairwoman Madam Ho Ching. Friends, thank you all for having me here today. I've been given the floor for a few minutes to make a brief comment on the participation of 4 of our companies, namely Asia Pulp and Paper, Golden Agri Resources, Sinarmas Land, and Golden Energy and Resources under the umbrella of the Sinarmas family in becoming a core member of the Philanthropy Asia Alliance and in leading one of the new CTAs this year. Sinarmas has been a group of companies and has grown to be a significant part of the Indonesian economy over the last few years in pulp and paper, agriculture and food, financial services, real estate, communications and technology, energy and infrastructure, and in healthcare. The group is also expanding its operations across Asia and further afield. Now, it has always been the nature of the companies within the Sinarmas brand to give back to the society that has allowed it to flourish. This has taken several forms. Individually, the companies have had their own community programs within each sphere of business and influence. But as a group, using Eka Foundation as well as Sinarmas, they have made contributions in areas like enhancing education and healthcare, building schools and clinics in rural areas across Indonesia. During the COVID period, Sinarmas companies fronted their healthcare fight during the pandemic, offering medical aid to the tune of $71 million, participating in Temasek Foundation's initiatives, including the donation of oxygenators to Indonesia, as well as the Bring Your Own Bottle campaign that took place in Singapore and in Batam. As a group, the companies also responded to calls by EDB to raise money to help neighboring countries. Within Indonesia, we made available 1,200 tons of liquid oxygen that was able to fill around 1 million oxygenators across Indonesia. But obviously, with the climate change in full swing, the component companies have also trained their efforts in combating climate change. All companies that are involved in plantations, especially APP Sinarmas, as well as GA, have made the protection of carbon sinks now, the remaining rainforests, peatlands, mangroves, as a priority. This effort must also now be coupled with the efforts to lift many in the rural communities out of poverty. It's very clear to us, sustainability and the eradication of poverty must go hand in hand. This is a UN development goal, and to combat activities such as illegal logging, the use of fires, new forms of sustainable economic activities must be introduced into rural Indonesia. Both APP and GA have introduced programs to do just that. APP launched its integrated forestry and farming system about 6 years ago. Similarly, GA implemented their community economic empowerment programs. Both these philanthropic programs seek to provide rural farmers with alternative means of livelihoods, involving some form of sustainable farming without deforestation and the use of fires. And this program today has already touched more than 400 villages across Indonesia. The desire of Sinarmas companies to participate in PAA and to lead a call of action reflects 2 things. First, as a movement, we find congruence in the pillars of the PAA, having already been involved in education, global health, and climate action. But more particularly, because we already have activities addressing sustainable farming in Indonesia, IFFS and CEP, we know that we can make a contribution in leading this CTA. The CTA that we are heading involves helping communities within a framework to grow a sustainable crop called jatropha. Jatropha has had a long history It's been explored several times in Indonesia, but it's failed to establish itself as an alternative crop due to low yields. However, in recent years, research conducted by J Oil, a joint venture founded by Temasek Life Sciences Laboratory, has successfully introduced a new high-yielding variant, has introduced refined agronomic practices, and the utilization of the whole plant to maximize revenue generated. As of now, successful trials have already been completed in Ghana. As jatropha can grow in relatively poor soil conditions and lower rainfall, it allows communities to make use of otherwise unproductive land to supplement and diversify their incomes, and to incentivize better management of land. This will bring about significant carbon benefits. First, in the production of biofuels to obviously replace the use of fossil fuels, but more importantly, in the protection and the rehabilitation of land. Now, we aim to do this at scale, as only when we do so that we can bring about significant impact. And this is where we need your help. My colleague in the afternoon, Tony Kettinger, will provide greater details of how you can make a difference in facing the great challenges that we have in Asia, and every effort to introduce this crop to help bring about a more sustainable future, especially in Indonesia. I thank you for your support. Thank you.